Dennis, my good friend, we are live, sir. It is April 11th, 2022. Thanks for coming on, man. We got a lot to talk about today, and we're going to try to fit it within like a 50-minute window. You think we could do it?
I think we'll try.
All right, man. Topics for the evening. AT&T raising prices, all but confirmed. We got it from the CEO today. So that's pretty much a foregone conclusion. So it's not a question as to if they're going to raise pricing. It is going to be when they will, increase pricing. And I think what's also left to be determined is how they do it. I think the execution is important. Do they raise the pricing on plans? Do they add a surcharge or a fee? How do they calculate it? What will be the percentage or the dollar amounts? Or
Well, I know the answer to that, actually.
Okay, well, then bring it to us, man. We'll talk about it today. And then AT&T and T-Mobile, their 3G lives on through Verizon, apparently. This is pretty crazy, man. 3G is like, it's like a honey badger, dude. You know how the honey badgers, they get like bit by snakes and stuff, and they just like sleep it off with the venom. Apparently 3G is a honey badger, man. And we'll talk about cable and fiber and how fiber is going to force cable's hand.
Well, let's get right into it, man. Like you said, we're on a time slot. Let's go into hyperspeed mode, all right?
All right, AT&T raising prices. We'll start there. What do you think, Dennis?
So, yeah, kicking it off, it's so from what I understand or what I've heard through my grapevine that I have, AT&T is going to be bringing back some live television channels to their elite plan. Have you heard about this, Sneed?
Oh, no, this is new to me.
Okay, well, what do you know? I'm bringing something new to the table. So from what I've heard through my little grapevine is that AT&T is going to basically do what they did when they first brought back Unlimited with DirecTV, but with a much skinnier bundle of channels, specifically channels related to Discovery.
So we're talking about maybe like 5 to 10 channels?
I think it's going to be about 20 channels.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well. But they're going to be bringing back live TV from what I've heard through my grapevine. And that's going to be added on to HBO, included with HBO Max on their elite plan. And basically, the price increase from what I heard is it's not going to necessarily be the single line cost, but it's going to be the multi-line pricing. Like instead of the discount being as severe as it was, they're basically going to make that less competitive, essentially. So, like, if 3 lines would say, I'm just going to use an example. If 3 lines was 180, 3 lines will be 200 now, for example, if you catch my drift.
Okay, so then they are essentially raising the pricing on the plans.
Yes, but not on the single line from what I've heard. I think single line is going to be still 85.
So they're reducing the value on the multi-line discounts.
Correct.
Huh. So what did AT&T ever disclose what percentage of their accounts are multi-line or single line?
I do not know. These are just things that I've heard from my little circle of people that have reached out to me on Discord. If you have information that would go against what I'm saying, I'm also open to the table, but that is what I've heard in my grapevine.
No, these are questions I'm going to have to ask certain people and do some sniffing around. The execution of any pricing is very sensitive. And actually, you know who stands the worst in all of this is going to be the carrier that increases pricing first. You know, people are going to start turning to other carriers, not realizing that the other carriers are probably going to raise pricing too. And
yeah,
you know, like if AT&T kicks down the door, and I'm not even sure if AT&T will be the first to do it. Could be Verizon for all we know. You know, I do feel confident that it's not going to be T-Mobile to raise prices first.
They literally can't. Like,
like their situation is kind of different. But they do have a bit of a workaround. You know, we talked about this yesterday on the Patreon page. We had the exclusive podcast. They can kind of work around it by not increasing plans directly, but they could charge fees and such that don't impact the plan. You know, like if it's a feature, you know, a surcharge, you know, if
you know what,
could get rid of taxes and fees, you know, like,
you know what page this sounds like it's coming from? This sounds like cable to me.
I mean,
this is what cable does.
Would we be shocked? I mean, we can't be, right? These are essentially, I mean, ISPs, whether you do it by wireline or you do it by wireless, it's all scumbaggery, right?
I'm just saying that's an old fashioned trade book of big cable. Get you a nice good price on the actual plan. Rack up your bill with extra fees that don't actually exist. That look like they're government fees, but aren't actually government fees. They're just costs that are added on by the company.
Yeah, hidden costs. Just I've seen all types of stuff from AT&T bills. People paying property taxes and stuff.
Literally paying for AT&T's property taxes for their offices.
Yeah, so this is a foregone conclusion. The CEO spoke to it today, and uh, we covered it yesterday on the podcast on Patreon. He mentioned parts, he mentioned transportation, goods and services. Everything is just costing more to produce, to deliver, to execute. They've got a very expensive 5G build that is about to kind of be on their hands, that they've already started. Their fiber investment is huge. It's going to get bigger. And with every industry across the entire globe essentially increasing pricing, there was no way that the internet service providers weren't going to get involved. You knew they would. And, like I said in the early onset of the show, I never really thought of it as if it was going to happen, more about when and how it would be executed.
Well, I'm sad to be wrong. I'll admit that I was wrong, but I'm sad about it.
The only thing I'm sad about is that it's happening. I would have loved to have been wrong.
I do gotta ask though one really important question, and this is me specifically calling out T-Mobile on this. If T-Mobile does raise their pricing, do you think that their network and the state that it's currently in today would be worth the increased pricing? Like, do you think it's worth it to still be a T-Mobile customer if they raise your bill?
It's always comparative, Dennis. It's always relative to the competitors. So if you're in a market where the network experience is similar, then you choose your carrier based on pricing and benefit. So if Verizon is 99% reliable, as is AT&T and T-Mobile, if the speeds on Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile are relatively the same when it comes to video resolution, playback, and perks and benefits and all of that, when you start weighing this stuff, the price is the number one. That's assuming that everything else is pretty close. Now, if T-Mobile's got an issue where you live in your market and you're only with them strictly on price and you're getting a lesser network experience, well, then you're going to start thinking about leaving, or vice versa. And we've seen people do this. We have seen people leave Verizon because of pricing, and the other two carriers are close enough or as good or better. And that's a pretty simple calculus. If AT&T or T-Mobile are better than Verizon in your market, then why the hell would you stay with Verizon?
And
it wouldn't even make sense, right?
I agree. Let me ask you one other question, by the way. These prices, I know we're saying it's because of inflation, but it's not actually, in my opinion. I don't think it's even an opinion. It's a fact. Like, inflation wouldn't be the forced de facto factor for this. But I want to ask this, though. With the enhancements that are being had for 5G and how 5G is starting to be marketed as sort of a premium feature, we've seen Verizon do this with their ultra wideband, and we've started to see AT&T do this to some extent, somewhat. Do you think it is worthwhile to actually pay for a premium plan to get quality 5G access, or do you think more people should start considering MVNO options?
MVNO options are definitely there for people. I just don't think people understand how the game works yet. There's just not enough of those hunter, scourers, people that are always looking for the best deal. They don't. I mean, everybody looks for a deal, but most people just think to themselves, if I want mobile networking service, I got three choices. I got Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. So they're not even thinking about MVNO. Dennis, if you were to name 10 MVNOs to a layperson, when it comes to their service, you name 10 of them, they may not know 7 of them. You name the big 3, and they might know Cricket, they might know Metro, and they might know Boost.
That's
half
fair.
of them, yeah. I mean, but that's it. And the only reason they know those brands is because those brands were owned and operated by the big carriers. So they have national advertising platforms. But if
Well,
you
this
start naming like US Mobile and Visible and what's the other one? Mint. Very few people are gonna. I mean, even Mint has some advertising, right? And people still don't really know it.
Well, this is my hot spicy take for the people that listen to me. I think that if you don't care about the perks, there's no reason to go with Verizon postpaid anymore. I argue that US Mobile is giving you a better plan than most of Verizon's offerings for less. And if you're someone that really cares about having hotspot included, and at the current moment of the time of me saying this, high speed hotspot, Xfinity Mobile would be a great choice if you live in an area where 5G UW is, because right now it's uncapped. If you want AT&T, I argue go with Cricket. Cricket's plans have tax and fees included and are basically extra priority and pretty darn solid. And for T-Mobile, I argue just go with either Metro PCS or Mint. I think that they are all offering options that are better. And to be perfectly frank, with all the excess capacity that's being brought about thanks to mid-band spectrum, priority levels don't matter as much anymore. That's my hot take.
Well, but the people have to know that those options exist. You know, part of the MVNO process is we don't have an advertising budget. You know what I mean? So that's what these big carriers can do is they can push the narrative. They can put advertising budgets to it. They can do TV and, you know, like I'll tell you what, man, I am not seeing much advertising from Verizon in Q1. I know a lot of people haven't discussed this, but, you know, we'd like to try to cover everything. I have seen very little advertising from all carriers. It looks like they leaned out Q1 after spending big in Q4. Christmas, the football season, you know, they take the first quarter off. And that is an environment that hurts Verizon. So I think Verizon's going to have a bad Q1. I think AT&T is going to have a solid Q1. I think T-Mobile's will be good too. It just, you know, it 100% correlates to their advertising dollars, how well they do in a quarter for the most part. The only company it doesn't seem to affect much is T-Mobile. They advertise a lot all the time, but I don't think the advertising does much for them. They just do it because it's what they do. They just want to keep their, you know, they want to keep the mind share as the disruptor, as the uncarrier. You know, you look at the message on the advertising, but these smaller companies don't advertise anything. They simply can't afford to it. They can't. You know, there's no budget for that. Everything they do is going to be centric around value and giving customers, you know, the best value they can, and then try to snag up share from other carriers, you know, as they start to look for better deals. The interesting thing is going to be, well, when they do raise the pricing, do we start to see MVNO shifting? But that's going to involve customers having to be aware that MVNO exists, and that's the difficult part. How do MVNOs do this? How does US Mobile get market share? And what is good market share for US Mobile? You know, if US Mobile adds 10,000 customers in a given month, we call that a win?
I don't know, man. I'm just going to give you the honest answer. I don't think we'll see as much of a shift as I wish we would, mainly because most people have family plans with the postpaid carriers, and there's always going to be someone that has a device being financed that they're not ready to pay off in one lump sum, and that's going to really tie things down.
Yeah, and MVNOs don't really pay to switch.
Right.
You know, that's
But I
another thing in the
wish,
phone financing, you know.
but I do wish it would happen because I'm a firm believer with people speaking with their fun bucks. And I honestly think that, in my opinion, the price hikes that are going to be coming are absolutely 100% unjustified in my viewpoint, because I know what it costs for the carriers to actually offer that service, and I know what their profit margins are. And there's no other industry that I know of where you can say you have like a 95, 97% profit margin. Like, to me, that is insane. I don't know if it is for you, Sneed, but you run a business, and I'm willing to bet you don't have a single product that makes that kind of profit margin.
Nothing. Maybe water.
That's about it.
You know, I can't think of anything. Even then, it's like, What do you if you buy like mega cases of water and you sell them for $1 or $2, you might be operating at like a 70% profit.
Yep. But with that being said, we hit 15-minute mark. We got very little time. I want to hear about this 3G talk living on. Please tell me about it.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Verizon is going to be carrying the 3G connections for the rest of the year for the big two carriers, the other two big two carriers. Uh, T-Mobile is going to be shutting down in phases the CDMA on Sprint as they transition and move that spectrum along to LTE and 5G. That process is going to be painful. It's going to be painstaking. It's going to take time, probably several months, and they know that. And then Verizon, which is, trying to work through getting people transition over to upgraded devices and alarms and all this other stuff. And AT&T is doing the same, but no lie, whether it's T-Mobile or AT&T, Verizon is going to they put together some kind of roaming agreement with the carriers, and they're going to be carrying the 3G traffic. And this is confirmed. This is not speculation. This is internal from Verizon. All right, this has been disclosed. I have confidence in this. It is confirmed. So a lot of people are like, no, it's not happening. And well, I don't know what to tell you. You're in denial then, I guess. It's happening. The AT&T situation is interesting because we're starting to see the additional 5 megahertz of HSPA 850 moved along to the N5. The channel has widened from 5 megahertz to 10 megahertz. And speeds have increased. The thing about people that are on modern devices, they can't take advantage of any spectrum that's on 3G, HSPA. That's not going to help them. But the amount of people that additional 5 megahertz is going to help once it's on LTE or 5G, it's huge. Because think about it, like 35%, 40% of users have already upgraded to a 5G device.
And remember what Pete taught us. That 5 megahertz is really like 3.5 megahertz or less.
The inefficiency. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Right. Now it moves over. It turns N5, which is 5 megahertz, into a legitimate 10 megahertz. So I'm happy that it's happening. It's just weird that Verizon is going to continue to operate 3G and keep these legacy devices both on T-Mobile and AT&T going.
You know what's ironic too about this all as well is that out of all the carriers' 3G networks, I would argue that Verizon's 3G network was the weakest of the three, because Verizon didn't actually upgrade to HSPA plus like T-Mobile and AT&T did, which did have a significant improvement from a capacity standpoint. However, I will just say it's great for Verizon winning the contract, I suppose. Although, to be perfectly frank, just let 3G die at this point. Just let it die. There's no reason for it to exist. Honestly, for those people that are on legacy devices, it would be smarter just to keep 2G on, because you could literally have 2G literally operating in the guard bands and have it like with like literally like a sliver of like 2 megahertz worth of spectrum, and it would just be fine for calls and texts, which is really all that matters at that point for those legacy devices. And then just get the rest of that spectrum onto 5G. Don't even put it on LTE, put it on 5G so you can make full use of it.
Yeah, I don't feel bad for people that are on old legacy connections. I'm not that guy.
I did feel bad at one point, and that was like
probably
year.
3 years ago.
Well, no, even last year when we were talking about it, if you remember, I told you I felt bad when we were talking about Dish, and I was saying how T-Mobile should do their part to upgrade the phones. I was talking about how I felt bad about it, but we're in 2022 now. 3G's been around for what, 20 years?
Yeah.
So there's been plenty of time between now and then to upgrade the phone. But do you have anything else that you want to say on it? Because I'm really itching to hear what you want to say about fiber forcing cable's hand.
I mean, that's pretty much it, man. Just as to get people aware, to let them know what's happening and how it's kind of playing out. It's not something that I feel compelled to, spend too much time on, only because most of us here have already transitioned and we're not really impacted by it as much, with the exception that the faster the transition happens, the more streamlined our network connections are and the more capacity we have on meaningful channels. So, stuff getting wider on LTE and 5G is where we're at, and we're kind of happy for that at least. Let's do the transition. Let's pivot over. All right. Fiber could force cable to choose their method of business, their business philosophy. You ready for this, Dennis?
Yes.
Okay. Name of the game is ARPU or market share. Cable can't have both. They are going to have to choose one. ARPU or market share. All right, so you get the premise of this?
I do. Basically,
Okay.
the premise is either cable can continue to have their prices be sky high, where they can get away with it, or they start fixing their pricing structure and make it competitive with what fiber offerings are in order to keep and or grow market share.
Bingo. All right, Dennis. So where do you think they should go, man? Or how do you think it's going to play out?
Well, where I think they should go and how it will play out are two different things. How I see it playing out is basically that they keep their ARPU. I don't see I'm sorry, but I don't see fixed wireless forcing cable's hand to change what they've been doing so far, especially when they're getting away with charging some people $150 for internet, right? Like, there's no way they give up that kind of profitability. Plus, right now, as it stands anyway, for all intents and purposes, the penetration of fixed wireless into the market and the penetration of fiber is still relatively small, especially when we start talking about where it overlaps with big cable in a meaningful, competitive way. I think.
Name your percentage. What is the fiber penetration rate nationally?
I want to say it's like less than 20%.
Last year was between 20 and 30%.
Oh wow, it's bumped up a bit. Okay.
Yeah.
I was
That's
not
the
aware.
newest data. Yeah, you were probably right a year ago. You probably were. Yeah.
Well, at 1/3 of the country, that's definitely more meaningful. But the only way I see I'm going to put it this way. Cable is going to keep doing what cable does, and they'll be selective about where they want to be competitive and lowering their prices. And by that, I mean cable will give big promos where things like Fios exist, i.e. like my market, but they're still going to charge the person that only has them and maybe a fixed wireless option the crazy prices that they do, because there's no reason not to. Not until fiber or something equivalent to cable makes its way out there. And I just see that being the way they operate, because they've always been about ARPU. I mean, think about how they've always structured bundling deals. They literally, I mean, they've gotten less egregious with this, but I don't know if you remember back in like 2008, but like cable companies used to literally punish you for being a single product customer. Like, perfect example, Armstrong Cable. When Armstrong Cable first introduced their data cap, it used to be 300 gigabytes. However, if you bundled products, you could get your data cap increased if you bundled products, and that was the only way. Now, later on, they changed that. They made it so you could buy extra data, and they end up raising the cap as well along with it. And they end up tying it to speed tier. So if you got a higher speed, you got a higher data cap. But originally, when they instigated it, you used to have to bundle if you wanted to get a higher data cap than 300 gigabytes.
Cable is the most predatory business industry I've ever seen. I've seen all this, Dennis, like what you're talking about. I mean, I think everybody has lived it at some point in the last 20, 30 years. They've seen these things play out. Now, my prediction would be in areas where there are not three competitors, cable is probably going to increase pricing. I'm not even joking. Not in areas where they have three competitors. In areas where they have three competitors, they are going to have to compete or they will lose market share. And yes, Dennis, fixed wireless access is now officially a competitor. All they have to do is match pricing, and it makes them a competitor. Well, at least match pricing, but I say beat pricing. The better they do on pricing, the more legitimate the threat.
I'm gonna say this though. I'll give you some slack, and I'll agree with you that fixed wireless can be considered a competitor, but we have to at least agree on one thing: Starlink is not a competitor to cable. Please agree with me at least on that.
No, that is not even close.
All right, cool.
They don't exist in the same world.
All right, just making sure we're on the same page on that. So
Starlink can't even deliver the goods. You can't be a competitor if you can't deliver service.
True.
I understand it's difficult, but like this is the conversation I have with people about Teslas. They don't deliver cars. You know, the Neo and all these other EV companies.
Well,
You don't make cars, you know,
I'm
so you're
saying
not a competitor to Toyota, you're not a competitor to Ford, you don't deliver cars, they do.
even if Starlink did deliver the goods that you put it, the price point of $100 isn't something that would drive costs down for big cable. Is what I'm going for.
Never. Because cable average is between 85 and $90.
And actually, small correction for myself. I'm sorry, Starlink's now 110. Sorry, small correction for myself.
Exactly, and that's no small correction, bro. That's big. Like you nailed it. They could not even do it on $100.
And DSL also doesn't count as a competitor either. I'm throwing that out there, but DSL also does not count as a competitor.
Yeah, I think that's valid. They can't produce any uplink.
Well, there's certain circumstances where it can. Like I know Carlos out where he's at gets like 100 by 20, I believe, or CenturyLink bought a DSL.
100 by 20 would be considered mid to entry level cable.
Definitely bare bones entry. Honestly, Sneed, I think the slowest speed the cable providers offer at this point is 200 meg by 10
on downlink. Yeah, I'm with you.
200 by 10. And honestly, going one step further, the major providers have gone to like 300 by 10 and sometimes even 300 by 20, depending on market. So
here's where I think this comes into play, and this is why I think it's going to be market to market, and this is why I kind of looked at it like, well, it depends how many competitors are there. If you're in a market with 5 million customers available to you, and you're competing with two other providers, competing in pricing makes sense because there's a huge pool of users. However, in markets where there's less customers, the ARPU play is crucial because you may only be competing for a switcher pool of 1,000 customers. Why would you cut your pricing just to snag 10% of those switchers? 10% of 5 million people versus 10% of 400,000 people. You know, like you could play the numbers game. You could crunch those numbers and say, well, who cares? Let's just raise pricing by 8%. Screw competing for pricing. We'll just increase our ARPU and cut our losses.
Yep.
You know, so they'll run those numbers, but they will be forced to move. They will have to act. You know, fiber is obviously the best connection, and it is the best option. Anybody who is choosing cable over fiber must be looking at it from the cable must have better pricing. There would be no reason.
I can think of 3 reasons that are justifiable. Pricing is the number 1 reason. However, number 2, and Sneed, I know this is going to be crazy me saying this, but number 2 is that there are still a portion of people out there that actually watch traditional TV. And I'm going to go out on a limb and just say traditional cable television arguably is probably the best way to watch TV still. I say that because most other options tend not to carry all the locals, with the exception of like something like YouTube TV. And if we start talking about YouTube TV plus internet versus cable plus internet bundle, I mean, it gets back into pricing, but cable television ends up being a little bit better from that standpoint. And then lastly, the third one, this is a big one, is that cell phone bill, that cell phone tie. And we talked about it before, but if you got your cell phone service with big cable, you're probably not leaving.
We got our first super chat. Kamikaze Kid breaks the seal. Thank you for the super chat, Kamikaze Kid. I have T-Mobile Home Internet. My family is happy with what we get. 300 meg, 500, 600 at times, cheaper than Spectrum compared to what I was paying before. $100 for lower speeds. We do see this. We do see this from time to time. The fixed wireless overachieves, and especially when cable underachieves. It makes the it makes the fixed wireless option a lot better when you're dealing with crappy cable. So we definitely are seeing that, and we're glad to have those options. And big shout out to Kamikaze Kid, longtime supporter and friend of the channel. Appreciate you, man. I don't know, man. Another thing to consider at this point with, like, you know, cable and fiber and all this other stuff is now that cable is starting to do the wireless thing, right? They're selling mobile service now as MVNOs. and they're bundling service and they're giving a discount for the wireless to get you going with, cable and TV. So sell lines at $30 or 35 or $40 over a carrier who's going to sell you a single line for $80 or $90. I mean, even with two lines on Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile, you're going over $160, right? Right? Is it 150, 160?
For 2 lines of cell phone service?
Yeah, like
You're talking like
2 lines postpaid on Verizon, 2 lines postpaid on AT&T.
probably talking like 140.
Okay, so taxes and fees put you at 150, 155.
No. I'm
depending.
saying like 140, like out the door. You're probably talking around that territory.
140 out the door.
Yeah.
All right, so Big Cable's saying we're going to sell it to you for 30 a line.
80 or 60, yeah.
Okay, $60 to $80, and all you got to do is have their cable or whatever. I mean, they're bringing it to the carriers too, man.
I mean, basically, you can get internet and 2 lines of cell phone service for the cost of 2 lines of cell phone service with the big guys.
Yeah.
Which that goes ultimately back to your price thing that you talked about, but I mean, it all comes back down to pricing again, right? Better pricing, essentially.
Yeah, this was an interesting article that I was reading, and it was looking at the ARPU and the market share. And this is not specific to like cable and fiber. We could make the same argument about like Verizon and AT&T and T-Mobile. Like AT&T is trying to do both. They're trying to capture ARPU and market share. And then T-Mobile's like volume numbers. We want to just have every quarter, we want to be the market leader in additions. We want to just grow. Growth. That's what they eat, sleep, and you know what. And then Verizon's like, we'll facilitate any MVNO as long as we don't have to serve their customers. Well, you guys can all have access to our network. We just don't want to serve unprofitable customers. Like, they're cool with US Mobile dealing with their people. They're cool with Comcast and Charter serving customers. They're just like, hey, we'll sell the network as a service. And then, here we are. They're going to have a bunch of people on their network, and it's going to finance their build. And if those customers were going to leave, they at least will continue to get some of those bucks, even if it is $30 ARPU or whatever,
So going back to the crux of the issue, I'm going to make a hot take that I wish wasn't true, but I don't actually see anything actually meaningfully changing. Like, by that I mean this. Like, let me provide clarification. In places where there's competition or it's highly profitable, those places are going to see large investments from big cable to keep them competitive from a speed standpoint and from a pricing standpoint. So, i.e., they'll be the first place to get DOCSIS 4.0 or your fiber to the home deployment, so they can, match what fiber is providing. More rural suburban places, or just rural in general, so places with like, say, 10,000 or less people, if they do get cable upgrades, I'm not saying they won't, it'll be much later. And I don't see cable doing anything to their pricing except for maybe going up, if anything, because I do not see, realistically speaking, fixed wireless ending to be. I don't see fixed wireless end up being a real competitor on those places either. And by that, I mean, I don't see companies like T-Mobile taking the initiative to upgrade that small town to 5G ultra capacity anytime soon, when they still got a lot more network build out to go.
Yeah, they do.
And as we both agreed on, Starlink can't be considered a competitor, nor does DSL. So I don't see much changing for those towns. And then for the very, very rural parts of the country, cable wasn't planning to go out there anyway. Neither is fiber. They're stuck with Starlink, and they're praying and hoping to God that Verizon fixed wireless or T-Mobile's 5G home internet comes out to them. Like, they are absolutely begging God for a miracle to happen. And that's been the same story that we've been talking about for about the better part of 20 years, I would say. It's been the same ritual. The only thing that's changed here is that the people that are fortunate enough to live in a city that doesn't have absolute dunces for local leadership now have at least one secondary option that is great, which is fiber. And even then, we have to hope and pray that cable actually does stay competitive, because I can tell you right now, if companies like AT&T get into a powerful position, you can bet your bottom dollar their pricing would go up.
Well, I mean, that's always been their MO, is monopolize.
Yes.
I mean, this is in their DNA. I remember reading about some kind of like a letter that's in AT&T headquarters when you walk in the building. It's like a letter from, at the time, the CEO of AT&T, and he wrote it to like the workers, the employees of AT&T that worked within the building, and it was something along the lines of like, how dare the United States government try to regulate us and tell us how to run our business and break up our business. And what it boils down to is they were just buying up all these companies and getting huge, just to eliminate competition for the sake of elimination. They weren't competing in pricing. They didn't want to have to deal with that. They were just like buying out everybody, and they got enormous. And then back in the 80s, Judge Green broke them up and turned them into the Baby Bells.
Well, the
And
reason why I specifically wanted to bring up that point to people is because it's really easy to hate cable. I know you had a terrible experience with Cox. I know a lot of people had terrible experience with their cable ISP, but I just want to make the point of realization that it's important to have cable around. Even if AT&T fiber comes to your area, you don't want cable to just become the DSL of today. Like, you don't want it to be a non-competitor, because I can promise you with utmost confidence, AT&T and Verizon will do the same thing that your cable company has been doing to you probably for the past decade. In fact, I know Verizon will do it because they have participated in it before. Same with AT&T. If you ever go on the AT&T subreddit, you will see posts where AT&T DSL is the only option for people, and it'll be like 50 by 5, and they're charging like $150.
So Dennis, we're in the current iteration. Most people for cable are in DOCSIS 3.0, right?
3.1 for most.
Most people are in 3.1. Okay. All right. So the DOCSIS 4.0 promise makes the capacity very much like fiber, from what I understand. So the potential is there.
It's not just the capacity, it's the latency as well. It knocks off another 2 to 3 milliseconds of ping time.
Which already we see instances, sub 8, sub 5 milliseconds, right?
Yes, we literally see, I would say it's more normal to see between 6 and 9. I would say that's the most normal.
Yeah. So altogether, you have a fiber-like experience. I mean, with infrastructure already existing and being so close to DOCSIS 4.0, I mean, I think we're in a healthy place, man, when it comes to technology. What are we talking about in 2 years? People like, I can get DOCSIS 4.0 cable for $80 a month, and I can get 2 gigs by 1 gig. And then the other option is fiber, 2 gigs by 2 gigs or something for the same price, or $90 or something. I don't know. Whatever it is.
On a quick side note, this is just a prediction of mine. I don't see us going past 5 gig to residential customers in the next 10 years. Just a quick side note. I know it's a little off the topic, but I think that's going to be the ceiling in which we see for the near future. And that's fine.
Oh, you know what we got to talk about, Dennis?
What's that?
And we can kind of cap the show off on this. Carlos did a video yesterday unboxing and testing the Verizon 5G Home and the Verizon 5G Business.
Oh, he told me about this behind the scenes. It literally throttles residential customers.
Yeah, man. So it does prioritize the business customer, and it does also have a strict cap for the business customer, meaning you have 3 options. You can get the 100, 200, or 300 megabit service, and they mean it.
Yeah, they basically guarantee it. Yes.
They mean it. They give you a quality of service assurance, and they're serious about it. So if you sign up for the 100 meg service, they give you 100 meg guaranteed. And the reason I think they're able to do that, offer a guarantee, is because they can throttle the other service. Like they throttle or they prioritize over the residential. So literally they could take throughput from the residential to ensure that the throughput is present according to the standard. Oh, it's 100, 200, 400, Carlos is saying. Okay, got you. All right. And that's great. Now, Carlos, if you could chime in, let us know what the uplink speeds are guaranteed for those. Do we have that?
I
Is
think
that
it's 10. I think
it's
it's
10
10.
across the board?
I think so.
Okay. I was going to say I wonder if they distinguish uplink for those 3 tiers. Uplink's harder to do though, for a wireless service. The uplink is tough. Like if you're near the site, the uplink, 40, 50 megabit is easy to accomplish. 80 in ideal situations, maybe 100 possibly. Okay, you said
Okay,
10,
Carlos
20,
was
and
20.
30. Okay,
Okay.
that's cool. Nice. All right. Well, I definitely dig it. I think it's good that they do that for the business customer because you're charging them more money, Dennis.
I wish they did it for the residential customer, even if it wasn't for those speeds. If they could set an expectation that you're never going to drop below, say, 50 by 5, I think that would go a long way in improving what fixed wireless is in my eyes.
Yeah, but they're charging double the business customers. Well, when I first saw the business pricing, this was like 6 months ago. They were charging 80 for the business 5G home, and they were charging 40 or 50 for the residential. And I don't know about the new structure. I'll have to take a look and kind of compare how they changed it, but that's what it was at the time.
Hey, Sneed, I just want to throw in one other quick thing while we have a little bit of time.
Yeah, man.
Did you happen to know about a provider called iNet7? They're based out of Sweden. Have I told you about them?
Oh, yeah, you did kind of mention this, but I'd never heard of the company before.
All right, well, look, they offer 25 gigabit symmetrical speed for $70 US.
Oh, so Carlos chimed in with the pricing. $30 for the 100 meg, $50 for the 200, 60 for the 400. And if you have business lines, they're giving you 50% off of that. That's actually pretty good. So they smartened up because they offered me the pricing. When I first signed up for 5G home, the millimeter wave, it was $70 for the one plan where they guarantee you 500 meg. No, 300 meg. They guaranteed 300 meg. The 500 meg was 99 and the gigabit speed was like 109 or something, 119. I remember when they sent me the pricing. So, yeah, it looks like they fixed that. That's more attractive. People will probably do those prices. No questions asked. All right, Dennis, the company again, the fiber company in Sweden.
It's called iNet7. I actually sent you a link on the private chat in case you want to share it on the screen. But basically, they offer 25 gigs symmetrical speed for the equivalent of 70 USD, and you get TV with it. And
like a legitimate TV package.
yes, and do you want to know what's really funny about it? Remember when I was having like just a nerd on for Comcast Gigabit Pro when we had Austin on the show on Best Phone Plans?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, this is like Comcast Gigabit Pro. This is your dedicated bandwidth. It's not shared. It's not GPON. It's not XGPON. This is your 25 gigs.
So the product you're talking about is the Fiber 7-X2.
Mm-hmm.
And it says here, your fiber services include TV7, which has 200 channels, 85 at HD, no extra cost. Use a max fix checker to find out what speed we can offer you. Okay, so you put in your address and then they could tell you what they've run to the area.
Yeah, and what's crazy is their setup cost is like a third of what Comcast charges to get installed for their Comcast Gigabit Pro. It's like
It says here
$300.
it's $65 or 65. What is their unit of
Crown something.
okay.
Hold on.
CHF.
Yes, CHF. It stands for Swiss franc. Sorry.
Okay, and what is the translation in dollars?
Yeah, it's like $70. That's the translation, like 70
Oh,
USD.
so it's pretty close to a dollar value. It's actually a little bit better.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. Okay, so that's a ton of value. They're just giving you the whole connectivity suite then.
Yeah, but the
Yeah.
reason why I'm bringing this up is for two parts. One is that if we talk about the future of fiber, this is the future of fiber. It's the death of XGPON and the death of GPON, because I've said this before, but the fiber that we have in the US is very much akin in structure to how cable operates. And number two, if we ever want to get to the type of speeds like 10 gig plus, just in general, you have to do a deployment like this. And the funny thing is, this is the funny part, from a cost difference perspective, Sneed, it's not that much more expensive just to give people dedicated bandwidth versus using GPON, believe it or not. We're talking like the differences of like $20.
Do you think it'd be better if we just moved municipal, bro, in a lot of instances, and we just kind of like went heavy in this type of fiber build?
Bro, you know Socialist Dennis is all about it. I mean, look at Utopia over in Utah, man. They got like 15 different fiber choices because Utopia lays down the fiber, and they basically lease off access to all the different companies that want to set up their own companies, just like
and
MVNOs
everybody's happy and satisfied.
Yes, you get
so
like
the companies are deploying technology. There's just installers of fiber.
You talking about here in the U.S. or in this example?
In Utah, in that example.
Yes, you have
that's
Utah,
the way I
the
think
state.
is.
Yeah,
I feel like that's the best option. Is you have a huge investment and focus of deployment, and then just have companies sell technology, have companies sell value, have companies sell features, have companies sell add-ons, have companies sell their customer care. Those types of things. Innovation.
Basically, TLDR, if you want the internet landscape to change in America, this is the only way. I know people think socialism is a swear word, but if you want internet to change in the US and to not have to feel like you're getting bent over a barrel, you need this to happen. You need municipal options that just share access. It's the only answer.
And then this infrastructure can get run to these cell towers. We're gonna need big time circuits. We're moving towards millimeter wave frequencies with very deep channels. We're gonna start seeing multiple mid-band channels of 100 plus megahertz of bandwidth. So you're gonna have like sub 3 gigahertz channels of like 50 megahertz. The 3 gigahertz channels are going to be 200 plus megahertz for each company. Then you're going to start seeing like the 6, the 9, the 10, the 12 gigahertz frequencies, the millimeter wave. We need a ton of fiber, dog.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We need high capacity fiber. We need enterprise grade fiber. The dark fiber, that we've talked about and we've seen. Moose has talked about 100 gig fiber becoming the norm, and terabyte fiber becoming something that we're probably going to be seeing within the next 5 years, deployed commercially, and the technology is going to be important, and the infrastructure is the only way you can facilitate that. We want these millimeter wave nodes, and we want all these sites, and you're going to have multiple carriers on all these macros and all these small cells. And it's going to need it. It requires it. Another obstacle, Dennis, is going to be municipalities. They got to get the hell out of the way.
Agreed. And I was also going to say another reason why we need what's basically happening in Sweden is we need the cost for these higher speed tiers to come down. We can't have carriers having to pay like $25,000 for a 100 gig circuit per month on their cell site. Like,
oh yeah, we need competitive rates.
Yeah,
we need ownership. We need good leases. There's a lot of corporate greed that can get in the way of progress too.
Yeah, it's not like
fun. Nobody's satisfied with a lot. They want like the world. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'll just say this. I love my Fios. I'm blessed to even have a fiber option available to me. That being said, one thing that I have learned throughout all my years is that internet across the board in the US, with the very rare exceptions, is all equally pretty bad. Like, and by those small exceptions, I'm talking about places like Pete, where he has next late fiber, where he can get 10 gig for reasonable pricing. Even though no one needs 10 gig, he can get it. Same thing with gig. The cable that we have today, as much as people like to think I'm a cable lover, it's not going to make its way into the competitive long-term future if our world gets as interconnected as I think it might. And by that I mean things like Meta with their project, like the next generation of the web and the virtualization and all that other good stuff. And as you talked about, all the needs that we're going to need for 5G and all the extra smart home appliances, and the government wanting to do these massive projects for like security cams and stuff like that. I don't know if you pay attention to that kind of stuff, Sneed, but Pennsylvania is spending multi-billions of dollars laying fiber across all the highways to set up like cameras and stuff to track for speeders and stuff like that. All of that's going to require reliable connectivity, and fiber is the only answer for that.
Fiber, baby.
But we're basically at the end of the show. I want to take this as a quick, brief moment to say, Sneed, thank you as always for thinking of me and having me on the show. I always enjoy talking to you.
Thank you, man.
To the SMT community, make sure you're smashing that like button for Sneed. It helps him out a lot. If you're not already, make sure you subscribe. If you don't subscribe, well, I don't know what you're thinking. You're missing out on a ton of good content, and Sneed brings you all the latest news very quickly. And also, if you're feeling like you need more content in your life because you don't know what to do with the rest of your afternoon, maybe swing on by to the Best Phone Plans YouTube channel, where you could see me talk with my co-host Stetson. And we even got plenty of videos with Sneed in them because he's also a good friend of the show.
Yeah, man, you guys are the best. You guys got good stuff going on. Moderators, if I can get a link to the Best Phone Plans YouTube channel and the podcast, maybe link an episode and see if people want to give that a listen or a view. And Dennis, thanks for coming on the show, man. It was a good convo. I appreciate you. And of course, the spicy hot takes are always appreciated. You know they are.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, man. That's it. Please do like and share the video. Subscribe for more. Bell notifications. As you can see, the notifications didn't really go out today. So follow me on Twitter as well. And you'll know whenever we do go live or we upload an episode here on the channel. All right. Hashtag Mod Squad, hashtag 2LiveCrew, hashtag Reap Crew, hashtag Ravioli Gang, hashtag Mod Squad, hashtag Help the Bear, hashtag Save the Bear, hashtag Yogi Bear, hashtag Boo Boo Bear, and I think what was the last one? It was hashtag BBW, and then
hashtag Peter B's channel if you want to watch some security stuff.
Oh yeah, we got it. Mods, go ahead and link Pete's channel too. I know he's been doing some videos lately. I've caught a couple myself. But yeah, let's do it, man. Let's call that a show. I'm gonna go have some dinner. Dennis, thanks again, and we will see you all on the next live stream.